Welcome, my friends, to this July 4th Independence Day edition of More Bad News, brought to you, as always, by Camel's Cigarettes. Take the Camels Challenge, smoke Camels for 30 days, and see for yourself what a difference Camels can make in your life. And have I got news for you this week? The AAAS, the American Association for the Advancement of Science, in their open access +1 publication, 3 July 2024. I'll put the link in the description. Smoking behavior is linked to personality traits. Smokers are on average more extroverted than non-smokers. That's it, my friends. Take the Camels Challenge, become an extrovert. And it'll change your whole life. Instead of being an introvert, you'll become an extrovert. Take the Camels Challenge. It will change your life. It's what I have been saying all along, and now I have the scientific evidence to back me up. I'll put the link. You don't have to take my word for it. I'll put the link in the description. Well, my friends, it's been another week of very bad news. But before we get to that, I wanted to comment on Independence Day. You know that the Continental Congress voted on the passage of the Declaration of Independence on July 2nd, 1776. And John Adams wrote in his diary that night, "The second day of July, 1776, will be the most memorable epoch in American history. I am apt to believe that it will be celebrated by succeeding generations as the great anniversary festival. It ought to be commemorated as the day of deliverance by solemn acts of devotion to God Almighty." 2 days later, the Declaration of Independence came back from the printer with July 4th written on as the date. So we actually are celebrating the great moment when the printer delivered the document back to Congress. But think for a moment, had we lost our fight for independence, which is certainly a possibility. In fact, how we won was incredible. Incompetence on the British part, and I mean, all kinds of luck. I mean, just it's hard not to see the finger of God in the American Revolution. But think for a moment, had we lost, we would have remained part of the British Empire, and we would be like Canada. We would be part of the British Commonwealth. Everything would have gone on just as it was, except that in 1836, 1837, the British Parliament abolished slavery throughout the empire, and slavery would have come to an end much earlier than it did, and probably without all of that bloodshed. What had happened in the American Revolution, was that the revolutionaries, quoting George Washington, they were terrified that the British wanted to emasculate them. Here's what George Washington said: "If we do not resist," and he's talking about now the Parliament's insistence that they had the right to make laws for the colonies under all circumstances whatsoever, that if we accept that, then we will become abject slaves, like the Negroes, over whom we rule with such arbitrary sway. Now, there were emasculated people in George Washington's day, and among them were women and servants, and the people who weren't taxed were women and servants and slaves. They were politically emasculated. They did not have a political status. So as far as the American colonists were concerned, the Parliament was trying to reduce us to slaves. That argument never really caught on in Canada, and it was an absurd argument because obviously, had we lost the American Revolution, the British would not have reduced us to slavery. We would have gone on, and in 1837 had abolished slavery, and we'd be today a part of the British Commonwealth of Nations. But that brings us to another step in American history, which is the Civil War, a reprise of this whole trope. The Southerners. First, let me say that slavery was disappearing from the rebellion in Haiti in 1804, I think it was, until 1888, when Brazil abolished slavery. So from 1804 to 1888, slavery was being abolished. Slavery had existed in Canada, slavery existed in New York, in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Vermont. Slavery existed everywhere. And slavery began in New York, I think, before Virginia. It didn't begin. So New York recognized the institution of slavery before Virginia recognized the institution of slavery legally. But that's beside the point. Slavery was ending everywhere, not just in the north of the United States after the American Revolution, but throughout the Americas. And in Mexico, Mexico had a rebellion against Spain, became independent, and in their constitution, they said we fought for in the name of liberty, that people have the right to political freedom, and slavery is not acceptable under those conditions, and so slavery will no longer be permissible within within Mexico. In Texas, a group of Americans who were living in Mexico refused to accept the abolition of slavery, and so they resisted to the death at Alamo, but they were successful in maintaining slavery in Texas for much longer because the Mexicans were intent on ending slavery in Texas. So so then in the 1830s, when everyone ought to have smelled the coffee already, that slavery was not an institution that was going to survive into the future, the Southerners began arguing that slavery was God's gift to humanity. The people were destined to be slaves. And slavery resembled the family. You have I'm the father. I have a wife. I have children, and I have slaves. And and the system in the North, this horrible capitalist system, this godless capitalist system. You have a downturn in the economy, and everybody is on the streets starving. Our labor force. The children are born, they're part of our family. They're born here, they're raised here. We don't throw them out when they're old. We keep them here. They die on the plantation. This resembles the plan that God had for humanity. So don't talk to me about your righteous slavery is bad stuff. But the odd thing was that it was only in the United States that this argument is just like in the American Revolution. It was only in the United States this kind of an insanity, this kind of insane, bizarre, twisted argument really had enough force to mobilize the South to defend slavery to the end. And now, the complaints that they had. Okay, so they were complaining that their slaves would run away to the North, and there was a federal Fugitive Slave Act which mandated that in the North that you had to catch them and return them to slavery, no matter what your feelings were about this. But there was resistance. So here's the solution: we'll dissolve the Union, form our own nation, and then when our slaves run away, they're going to run away from our country into their country. And there'll be no Fugitive Slave Act. There'll be no legal responsibility on their part to return them to us. But we also, they're not letting us expand slavery into the territories. That's another major complaint. So what we're going to do is form the Confederate States of America, and then the Western states that we were talking about won't be part of our country. And if we want to expand slavery there, we're going to have to go to war and defeat the United States of America and seize those territories. So Civil War in defense of slavery was signing the death warrant to slavery. Runaway slaves in the Civil War, 1 million slaves ran away. It was really poor decision making. At any rate, that brings me to something I don't know, God bless Reddit, I guess. Last week, Candace Owen, a Black voice for Turning Point USA, commented that Hitler just wanted to make America great again. God bless the Nazis. That's all I got to say. They still have faith in a future. The only Jews that still believe that there's a future are planning to rebuild the third temple and jumpstart animal sacrifice. Don't think we ever gave that up. I want you to know that from where I come from, my perspective as a yeshiva boy, and even later in life, I was the kind of Jew who, in the morning prayers, I always included the Korbanot, which is a section that most people, even Orthodox Jews, drop. But it is about 10, 15 pages of a detailed description of the sacrifices that were brought in the temple. And we said these every morning in order to bring those sacrifices in the only fashion that we could. We were fully prepared to bring the animals to the temple. As soon as the Messiah came, we rebuilt the temple and reinstituted animal sacrifice. So that was the attitude. And we were preparing for this at any moment. Those people are still with us. I have sort of lost my faith, but I'm traditional. I still say my prayers. So but I recognize that that the bad news is getting worse from week to week. It's ever more depressing. Like we're spiraling down a drain after having passed through an event horizon of a black hole, totally oblivious, of course, that there was one, and now there's no escape. We were beyond the reach of the universe. It's almost as if we're gone already, or pieces of us are gone. I've been listening to the Grateful Dead this week, and from my youth, and so watching some of these old concerts, and I had been to some of these concerts, and you see the audience, and there's no cell phones. There's no lights at all in the audience. The audience is, we were all there, all high on LSD, they're celebrating the moment with great music, and all sort of connected. And then going to concerts later in life where everybody's got a cell phone up. Nobody is actually watching the concert. It's so distracting. It just destroys the ability. What had happened in those moments, and these were not just moments at a Dead concert. I mean, I had these moments that in lectures. I had these moments just with friends, where you're all one. You just kind of merge together. You realize that the separation, the distance between you is, illusory, and you're just all happy together. That's all, And suddenly there's some bad news, and you're all sad together. It's because you're all connected, because we are all connected. So I guess that'll be it for my thoughts. Oh yeah, there was one other thing I wanted to tell you about that I thought that I had this week, and then I'll bring it to an end there. A young man that I know had a dream to start a bakery, and at great expense and effort, he began his bakery, and he was selling bread to all the local restaurants. And then the pandemic came, and he lost it all. What had happened was he had a dream, and the dream turned to dust. My friends, that's what's happening to young people around us. Their dreams are turning to dust. And what can I say? It is depressing. It is hard. It is terrible. It is all those things. But with that said, we have another week. And if you'll take the Camel's Challenge, by next week, you'll be an extrovert, like me. So I'll see you next week. Have a good week. Stay safe.